This is Weirdly Enough, your regular podcast for strange stories and amazing facts, delivered straight to your favorite podcast directory and at weirdlyenough.com. Now, here are your hosts, Andy and Len.
Yes, indeed. Welcome to another thrilling installment of Weirdly Enough. We're back again. You can find us at weirdlyenough.com. We're on Facebook and Twitter. Just search for us on those two medias. And you can download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're all over Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're on Audible, I think. I don't know. No, I don't know about that one, but we're on lots of different ones anyway. Lots of ways to hear your favorite weird stories. A few months ago, perhaps in the last series, we covered underground military bases, and this week we're going to be looking at that again in more detail. This is about a guy called Phil Schnider, I believe.
It is indeed. I'll be honest with you. I was in two minds about doing this.
Why? Because you're worried a black car will arrive outside as we record this and we'll be in a lot of trouble.
Well, yes, because I mean there's sinister forces afoot.
Oh, right.
But this is, I feel, very important information.
Okay, yes, we'll have to get it out.
You could almost say this is an emergency broadcast.
The thing is, when we record this, we get stats of where people have listened to the podcast, and always early on in the stats there's somebody listening in like Washington DC.
That's a bit worrying.
Yeah, so I think we are being monitored. So hello to anybody out there that has to listen to this dribble for a living.
This is not dribble. This is extremely important. This is, the command post of, the information war.
It must be somebody's job, just to, every time a podcast goes up, they put on the headphones, listen to it, just to make sure that it's not giving away some sort of terrible secret.
It'd be pretty cool though if that happened, Yeah. Because at least you'd be making your mark,
Yes. We're indeed. So who's Phil Schnider then, and what did he do or discover?
Well, basically, I mean, we're going back to this idea of the deep underground military bases. We did this last year in 2020.
Yeah.
And I think Phil Schnider might have been briefly mentioned. But he was a very interesting bloke because he actually worked for the US military as a contractor, as an engineer and a geologist, and he had an IQ of 163 and he could speak 11 languages. And basically he first came to prominence in various conferences and survivalist expos in America in the 1990s. Where he basically gave us account of what he said happened when he was building, these bases, So basically, it all really kicked off in 1979. He was employed by Morrison Knudsen Incorporated, which is, I suppose, like some sort of military contractor. But what he was basically doing is he's working on a deep underground military base at Dulce, New Mexico, which apparently is very infamous, And
how deep underground are these military bases then? Hundreds of feet?
Pretty deep. Basically, they drilled 4 holes into the desert, and Phil's job was to go down the holes and take rock samples, and basically see what the best explosive was to deal with the rock, because the idea was you literally be blasting sort of big caverns out underground, for the base. So basically him and a colleague, which was basically like a soldier, went down in like a retrieval basket. So they were lowered down, and they were down about a mile underground. So these, I mean, that surprised me, because when I thought of underground bases, I would maybe thought, maybe 100 feet, maybe a couple of 100 feet, because I mean I've heard of bunkers being that type.
But would that not be like incredibly hot? Would it not be?
I would imagine. You see, I don't know. Like, I'm not a geologist. I don't know. I don't know how far you'd have to go to kind of get the heat, if that makes any sense. I don't have the scientific knowledge, but I would imagine they know what they're doing, and I would imagine as well, because I mean I know normally if you go underground you get like a steady. Because I don't know. I mean, I have always had a weird I've always had a fascination with underground stuff since I was a kid. Like mines and underground stuff and bunkers and tunnels and all that kind of cool stuff. You know, I always enjoy going on like London Underground and stuff like that. Just the crack, you know, because you're underground, it's cool, like, you know. And I always like military stuff. So when you combine the two, it's always very fascinating for me. But just as an aside, one of my favourite trips when I was a kid was to, you know, the German underground hospital in Guernsey.
Yeah.
Absolutely fascinating. Didn't want to leave. Absolutely fascinating.
Yes.
You know, because just been underground, the whole kind of, it's like being on a film set or something like that. But anyway, as an aside, I was thinking about that the other day because I was preparing a bit of research for this topic. So I was coming across lots of stuff about underground bases. And in Jersey, apparently, it's, I think, a couple of 100 feet into a mountain or a hill.
Yeah.
So it's kept at a steady 17 degrees Celsius.
Right.
So I think normally if you go underground, it's fairly even temperature, but as you say, I don't know, maybe if you go to a certain point it gets too hot. But anyway, we're getting off topic.
I found some answers on Quora here.
Yeah.
Apparently the rule of thumb is an increase of about 12 to 15 Fahrenheit per 1,000 feet. So at a mile underground, it would be 60 Fahrenheit above the surface temperature.
That's kind of odd, like, isn't
yeah.
it? So the need means to maybe control it. Because like I said, I mean, I've heard of underground bases. I know, you know, there's a big one near Moscow for the top boys in Russia, and it was about 300 feet underground. And the idea was it would be far enough away from any targets and deep enough underground, and with concrete and stuff, you hopefully be okay if things kicked off. But I've never heard of a mile down. I mean, that's very deep, like, you know.
Well, the deepest mine is the Tatumna mine in South Africa, 4 kilometers deep.
Right.
4 kilometers. It's water cooled. But the rock face is 55 degrees centigrade before the water cools it. So
this is actually quite a claim this guy's making about being a mile down. But anyway, they got a mile down and they reached a large open air expanse. I don't know if that was something that had been already blasted into the rock or if it was like just a natural underground cave system. But to their shock, they encountered 2 7-foot tall grey humanoid creatures.
Greys under the bed.
The infamous greys. Now, Phil drew his pistol and began to fire, fatally shooting one of the creatures and heading over. So hang on. Phil's actually the villain here.
Why? Shooting it?
Yeah, should he not have, like, I mean...
Maybe they were attacking him, I don't know.
Maybe they were benevolent. But anyway, he got blasted by a ray gun.
Right, okay.
So he got zapped by a ray gun. And unfortunately he lost 3 of his fingers.
Yes.
And
he reckons it gave him cancer later.
Yeah. He was, because by the 90s, unfortunately, he was suffering from cancer, and he reckoned it was due to being zapped by the ray gun. But basically, they went for help, and a whole lot of other squaddies came down to tackle this kind of whole base of greys, and it became an all-out war. And a war that was kept hidden from the public initially. But basically, they must have sort of signed some sort of peace agreement with aliens, because basically for the last 2 years of his life, Phil went on a lecture tour. Now this was sort of 95, 96, and he started off talking about what had happened to him, and he got on to a deeper level, and he basically alleged that the government were on the deep state. You know, we're always hearing about the deep state those days. They're in cahoots with aliens.
Yeah, right.
And basically it's all connected with, you know, black budgets and underground bases and whatnot. But basically he alleges that 4 treaties were signed between the aliens and the US government in 1944, 1954, 1962 and 1979. And it was signed in 1954. The Gretna Treaty was signed between the Eisenhower administration, the US Navy, and a species of grey aliens who originated from Zeta, and I'm probably not pronouncing this right, Zeta Reticuli. I don't know how far away that would be.
Right.
Probably light years away, like, you know.
A long way away.
But basically, the agreement allowed for the abduction, study, and genetic sampling of humans in exchange for alien technology, which is pretty reasonable. Yeah. To be honest. Because, you know, if you're getting all the...
all that way.
Maybe we got the internet from the aliens.
Yeah.
Maybe we got smartphones. Maybe all this cool technology. In which case, it was a fair enough bargain, like, you know. So basically... there's a facility here, right? Phil, I don't know how he never really expanded on us, but he reckoned he was actually got invited to meetings, so it obviously calmed down after the initial conflict with the Greys, like, you know.
Yeah.
But he said that he was present at one particular meeting which included high-level United Nations officials. The meeting was held in an undetermined underground location and not the UN headquarters in New York.
Okay.
And according to Phil, this facility included large, expansive meeting rooms identical to the UN and a raised seating area.
Yeah.
And in this elevated section sat loads of 7-foot-tall grey aliens who were dictating policy to UN officials. So he reckons the alien agenda had gotten so far out of hand that the US Constitution no longer had any legal standing, and international leaders were at the mercy of the Greys.
Right.
So basically the Greys are running the show.
Yeah.
So basically, if you don't like the way things are going, you can basically blame the Greys.
Yeah.
You know, now there's a number of sort of things here that he was alleging. He said by 1995 there were 131 active DUMs in America.
Right.
So these fantastically deep, massive bases, 131 of them.
Yeah.
And approximately 1,477 in the whole world. So it's loads of them. Now each base apparently cost in 1995 dollars 17 to 19 billion.
Yeah.
And took about 1 to 2 years to construct with the use of highly advanced methods of construction that included melting rock using lasers that reduced the rock to powder, and then they smoothed out the tunnels using boring machines. So I'm assuming, I don't know if this was advanced technology that we're not aware of, that the government invented, or else maybe this was taken from the aliens or whatnot, you know. And he claimed that these bases are massive and house thousands upon thousands of people.
Right.
And this gets even. There's maps of us. You can look this up. Well, it's like down the rabbit hole kind of stuff. Now, some of what he says makes sense. Some of it's a bit out there.
Okay.
Magneto-levitation trains connect all the dumb bases in the United States in an enormous transport system capable of speeds of Mach 2 or higher.
Right. Underground trains. Is this? Yeah.
Mach 2. But quite fast.
Yeah, it would, but I suppose if it's maglev, it's like these loop systems that Elon Musk is trialing. You know, those kind of speeds would be possible, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
there's very little friction and things like that. You know, if it's floating.
He claims there's a whole other world down there that is filled with both human and alien life forms. I don't know if you've ever heard of Nightmare Hall.
No.
Because apparently at this Dulce base, because we could probably do a whole episode just in Dulce. You know, it's quite a rich kind of rich topic, like, you know. But there's like all different levels, and I think it's like level 7 or something like that is what they call it, Nightmare Hall.
Nightmare Hall.
And so like various kind of, you know, there's a lot of genetic experimentation where they've like mashed together genes of the aliens and people and whatnot. You know, it's all about gruesome, like, you know. Area 51 is actually a complex composed of 9 deep underground bases, and there's over 18,000 workers who live down there like all the time.
Right.
And are highly regulated and entirely veiled in secrecy, so they're not really allowed to sort of emerge from the bases. They're just sort of kept there all the time.
Right.
Know, working with
nice. Yeah.
Maybe the pension's good. I don't know, to be honest. Like,
but the pension, you probably still have to live down there because you'd never be allowed back up again.
I wouldn't fancy it myself.
No.
To tell you the truth, like, you know. Now, Schnider alleges there are 11 distinct alien races on Earth, and 2 of them are benevolent.
Right.
So presumably most of them are malevolent.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not very nice.
So they're all out for us then, yeah.
Yeah. And basically, the alien agenda is the complete takeover of this planet. And they want to kill off 5/6 to 7/8 of the world population by 2029.
Right.
So this is their ultimate agenda.
Coronavirus is caused by the aliens then, is it? Yeah.
Well, you know, I wouldn't want to say that in case we got kind of shadow banned or whatever, but, you know... this is really kind of this is like something I don't know what, Star Trek or something like that. It's quite interesting. Or what do you call it? Thing with Mulder and Scully, the X-Files. At least 9 races of alien beings view humans as a food source. The good news is, I suppose, is they're not all cannibals.
Yeah.
Instead, they use secretions from the glands of humans and animals for the mixture of vitamins in their food, and some alien races can get high off adrenaline. So they're not say eating people; they're using secretions from your glands.
All right, okay.
To get like high and stuff.
Yeah. I assume some secrete more than others.
No, I will not go there. Now, that's all stuff about the alien agenda was mainly in his last presentation.
When did he die? Did he say that before?
There's a whole thing here. 16 days before he gave us presentation, Mr. Schnider was shot in the shoulder by an FBI agent who wanted to kill him. Allegedly.
Right. Okay. Allegedly, yeah.
And it says here Schnider shot and killed the agent in self-defense, and he says he reported the incident to the FBI, who dismissed him in the entire incident.
Right.
So apparently he was stood there giving a presentation. Yeah, it's really bizarre when you get into this. Again, the whole Phil Schnider saga, I mean, it's worthy of a whole series, to be honest. It is down the rabbit hole, once you get into it, there's more to it. So presumably, I mean, the more you read the story of Phil Schnider, the more questions.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming he was standing there with like a bandaged shoulder down his presentation, saying, "Oh, I shot an FBI agent in self-defense, but I reported it and then they dismissed it." So that's why I'm stood here giving a presentation. He says that 11 previous attempts were made in his life since he started speaking out, and he said that DIA agents. What's a DIA agent? Some sort of security thing in America, isn't it?
Drug Enforcement Agency, is it? No, it's DEA.
This is DIA. And they said the agents tried to kidnap his daughter, but were unsuccessful due to his ex-wife who stopped them.
Right.
Which was handy. He said 11 attempts were made in his life. He'd been shot at, pushed off the road, and run off the road. 11 of his mates were murdered.
Oh, it's the intelligence service, DIA.
There you go. So it's not good to be mates with Phil Schnider, because a lot of them were done on. And allegedly 8 of them were suicides.
When did he die, you would say?
He died in 1996.
Alright.
And people think he was murdered in 1996. The police report said it was from natural causes. And the obituary given to the newspaper said natural causes. The autopsy said he was killed by asphyxiation. And the researchers think he was strangled by a catheter cord that was wrapped around his neck.
Strange.
So it could have been like he was, suicided, as they call it. Because he was whistleblowing, and speaking out and whatnot.
Well, I was looking for Phil Schnider. I came across this guy who I don't think it's the same one, but Phil Schnider, he's like some sort of strange country artist. I don't
think it's him. Phil Schnider, if you look, you'd be better off googling Phil Schnider Dulce or Phil Schnider UFO or something like that,
Definitely
because he's, he always wears a baseball cap, so there you go. That's the tale of Phil Schnider. It's pretty bizarre.
Very interesting one to have a look at and dig more deeply into.
I definitely, to be honest, I think going forward, I think the DOMS is something I want to periodically return to, because it's a fascinating whole kind of
so much there for
to kind of get into, like,
deep underground military bases.
Yeah,
is that it? We'll be back with a few short stories right after this. You know what I'm starting to find more and more is that science fiction films from about 20 or 30 years ago are starting to become reality. Do you ever notice that?
Well, that would be the subject of a future episode.
Good one. Well, they're talking of bringing back dinosaurs to life. From DNA.
I'll say 2 words.
What?
Predictive programming.
Alright, okay.
Which is the topic of a future episode.
We'll cover that before. But of course, bringing back dinosaurs ended well, as we saw in Jurassic Park. Do you remember the Bruce Willis film Armageddon?
Yes, I always get that confused. Was that the one with your woman and her dad on the beach? Or was that another one? Was that the one with Morgan Freeman in the limestone caves in the lottery? No, that was a different one, wasn't it?
No, it was a different one.
I always get those two, because there was the 2 asteroid ones in the 90s. I always get them confused.
Yeah. That's the one where they went up and blew a hole in the asteroid.
Yes, Liv Tyler was on it.
Yeah.
And there was a handsome young actor, and there was a whole big thing between him and Bruce Willis.
Right,
He was the dad, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was in it, yeah. Well, it looks like NASA are going to try that for real now.
Right.
See, there's a space object called Diddy Moon. it might be Diddy Moon, I don't know, Diddy Moon I'm going to call it. It orbits another rock called Didymos. I'm wondering when we're going to see mention of the Diddy Men. Maybe that's where they came from, these rocks out in space. Or Ken Dodd and his Diddy Man. Anyway, Diddy Moon is about 500 feet wide, and back in 2003 it came, in relative terms anyway, close enough to Earth. It was only 3.7 million miles away. NASA have got a mission they've codenamed DART, the Double Asteroid Redirection Test, and they're going to send a spacecraft, I'm presuming it's unmanned, in the hope of redirecting the rock away. So they're going to smash this spacecraft into the rock and see if it deflects away, and then they can hopefully use that with other near-Earth objects. So what could possibly go wrong, apart from maybe pushing it closer, pushing it into Earth's trajectory?
Well, you say there's a number of things that would worry me about that. I mean, first of all, what if it doesn't work?
Yeah,
And secondly, what if it works but it pushes it closer? But then what if it works but it smashes into loads of pieces?
Yeah, that's
and it creates this whole sort of... You see, there's been a number of these asteroids that have narrowly missed, and they only tell you after the fact.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a bit worrying, because I suppose the thing is they wouldn't tell people in case they panicked.
I know it could be happening tomorrow, and we wouldn't know.
Because I mean, look at the thing with COVID.
Yeah.
I always remember the toilet rolls.
Yeah.
I remember
stocking up on toilet rolls and rubber gloves.
A lady that I worked with, and this was just when the whole panic was beginning to break.
Yeah.
So I to be honest, I am turn on to Uncle Albert here from only cause during the lockdown.
Yeah,
I'll be sitting there in about 40 years.
Okay,
with like the big white beard going, during the lockdown, you don't know it was long, 2020 something during the lockdown. But anyway, I was messaged by a lady that I work with.
Yes.
In a state of panic and desperation because she'd scoured the chemists and garages of North Down in a futile effort to find aspirin and paracetamol.
Oh yeah, paracetamol was a big one. Yeah,
but if that happens with COVID, can you imagine what happens?
I know.
Like an asteroid.
Look at the petrol crisis. But I remember the paracetamol thing. I really laughed at it because I used to go to a filling station in the docks, and nobody was panic buying down in the docks. Doesn't matter. So there was always like plentiful supply.
That's because it's salty sea dogs and honest working men,
ladies of the night,
and ladies of the night who they're they're unruffled by that sort of thing,
So anyway, in a statement, NASA said DART will be the first demonstration of the kinetic impactor technique, which involves sending one or more large high-speed aircrafts into the path of an asteroid in space to change its motion. So here's watching to see if that happens. And you do like a good drinking session, don't you?
I've been known to, yes, yeah.
The same was said for Bethan Mutla from northwest Turkey, but he got separated from friends while drinking in a forest.
As you do.
After he hadn't returned, his wife and family reported Mr. Mutla missing, and a search party was launched to go out and find him. Now, I'm pretty sure I've heard things like this before, but he ended up joining his own search party to look for himself.
Did he not realise?
It ended when members of the search party started calling out his name, to which he replied, "I'm here!" It's unclear whether he'd be prosecuted for the endeavours, but all's well that ends well. And I know people love their pets and pay enormous vet bills to make sure that they get the best treatment possible. But most people draw the line at goldfish, but that wasn't the case for the owners of 17-year-old Bluebell, a 17-year-old fish. The fish is so tame she'll eat from the owner's hand and even comes up to the surface of the tank for a back rub. The vet was called Hannah Jessup. She wasn't new to operating a fish, however this is the first time that she was in charge of a procedure to remove a mass growing inside the fish's mouth. The most difficult part of the procedure was giving the fish anaesthetic. She was submerged in an anaesthetic solution before being placed on the operating table, and staff were on hand to keep the fish wet during the procedure. And apparently Bluebell is much better now and living her best life. There you are.
Living their best life.
And finally, here's a few more about pets. The funny stories, weird stories about pets. Down on the pet thing this week, A foul-mouthed African grey parrot who keeps telling his owner to F off has embarked on a new career of keeping frontline NHS staff at the James Cook Hospital in Middlesbrough entertained. Scooby's owner Lorraine said to the Metro, "He is foul-mouthed, but he also really intelligent. He's an amazing boy and we love him so much despite the fact he tells us to F off every so often." Lorraine's filmed the parrot shouting, "Let me effing out," as well as "Look at this effing mess." And when asked if he's a good boy, he says no. The video entertains colleagues in the COVID ward. So there you are. That's good, yes. And a runaway iguana has had to be rescued after sunbathing on the roof of his local pub in Kent. Firefighters were called to the Ship Inn in Folkestone after Ronnie scaled the heights of the building and was seen on the roof. A local RSPCA officer who assisted the rescue did say, however, that Ronnie suffered no ill effects from the incident and is back home, I assume, now.
Marvellous.
And drinking cans of lager instead of going out for a pint.
Well, as long as he doesn't get lost in a Turkish forest.
Oh no, yeah, he might end up getting eaten.
I remember saying a thing ages ago. It's better I couldn't dig it out, but it was a thing I saw on Facebook because, in an effort to sort of try and get the old bit of material or ideas for this show, I've joined some esoteric groups on Facebook.
There are some really strange groups on Facebook. Like,
and it's one of these things, you join one and you get suggestions for other ones. It gets weirder and weirder. But it was this thing, it was like weird photos from back in the day sort of thing. And there was a picture of in Istanbul in the 1950s.
Right.
This guy whose job was he had like a big basket in his bag.
Yeah. Oh, what was his job? Collecting iguanas?
Collect drunk people.
Right.
And he'd kind of help him into his wee basket, and then he'd carry them home.
Yeah.
And they'd be like lying there in this guy. He must have been pretty strong, like.
Yeah.
They'd be lying in this basket, and and they'd carry them home.
Why wouldn't they get a cart or something like that so he could wheel them home? Shopping trolley.
So and everybody needs to find their niche, and this guy's niche.
Yeah. Did he charge them? Was it?
I'm assuming.
Financial?
Yeah. I don't think he'd be doing it for free, like.
Yeah. Yeah. Istanbul taxi. Okay, we'll be back next week. What's it all about next week, Alfie?
Phantom time.
Phantom time.
Missing time. The phantom time hypothesis.
Okay, well.
That's the word I can't say.
Have a great week, folks. We will talk to you then. Remember, like and subscribe.
Thanks for listening to Weirdly Enough. Remember to subscribe to get the latest edition as soon as it drops. And don't forget to leave a review. Email us about anything we've discussed or with your own weird tale at podcast@weirdlyenough.com.